6 gunshots. That's what a text message cost Abram Walker. What could be so devastating in a few digital words that would push someone to pull a trigger not once, but 6 times? Today we're going to examine how something as ordinary as a notification on a phone transformed into a death sentence at a roadside motel. What makes someone snap to the point of violence? And how thin is that line between love and rage? Think about it. Have you ever felt that punch in the gut when you see something on your partner's phone that wasn't meant for your eyes? That moment when your stomach drops and your mind races with possibilities? Most of us take a breath. We talk it out. Maybe we argue. But for Carrie Woodberry, a text message became justification for ending a life. And not just any life. The life of a man she claimed to love. On July 2, 2024, what began as an argument in room 214 of the Quality Inn on Paxville Highway near Manning, South Carolina, ended with Abram Walker's body on the upper landing of a stairwell. Sheriff deputies arrived to find him already beyond help, with multiple gunshot wounds. His girlfriend, Carrie Woodberry, was still at the scene, handgun in possession. What the deputies pieced together was a domestic dispute that had exploded into violence, all reportedly triggered when Carrie discovered texts between Abram and another woman. A momentary explosion of jealousy had permanent, deadly consequences. Abram Bernardo Walker Jr. was born on April 27, 1996 in Columbia, South Carolina. At just 28 years old, his future was stolen from him. Friends and family described Abram as genuinely kind. The type of person who'd go out of his way to help others. Hardworking and respected in his community, he was known for his warm smile and dedication to building a stable life. Like many of us, Abram had his struggles and imperfections, but those who knew him well saw a young man with promise, someone who deserved the chance to overcome challenges and grow, a chance he'll never get. I want to pause here and ask, how many relationships around you right now might be hiding similar tensions, perhaps even your own? I need you to hit that subscribe button right now, because these stories aren't just about the victims and perpetrators. They're about understanding human behavior that exists in every community, maybe even closer than you think. Drop a comment below, sharing your thoughts on what might push someone to this breaking point. Have you ever witnessed jealousy transform a rational person into someone unrecognizable? If this case already has you questioning relationship dynamics, tap that like button. Each like helps this video reach someone who might need to recognize dangerous patterns in their own life. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who might benefit from these warning lessons, share this video. Your single share could literally save a life. As we continue exploring Abram's story, we'll examine how unchecked jealousy can become lethal. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How do seemingly normal relationships deteriorate into violence? What pushes someone past rational thought into deadly action? And could better awareness have saved Abram's life? The story of Abram Walker isn't just about one tragic night at a motel. It's about recognizing when passion becomes poison. It's about understanding that domestic violence doesn't always show itself until it's too late. Stay with me as we untangle the events that led to 6 gunshots over a text message. Abram Bernardo Walker Jr. was raised in a supportive yet complex family environment. Abram navigated the typical challenges of growing up in the American South. His childhood friends remember him as someone who found joy in simple pleasures, playing basketball at the neighborhood courts, fishing with his cousins, and dreaming about his future. By his early 20s, Abram had established himself as someone determined to build a stable life. He worked various jobs, eventually settling into a career that offered him the stability he sought, a foundation for what he hoped would be a promising future. Those who knew Abram consistently mention his genuine kindness. He never met a stranger, his former coworker mentioned in a local news interview. Abram could talk to anyone about anything. This natural charisma made him popular among friends and respected by employers. Despite facing setbacks that many young adults encounter, Abram maintained an optimistic outlook. He was known for helping elderly neighbors with yard work without being asked, and for stepping up when friends needed assistance. His work ethic stood out. often taking extra shifts and learning new skills to advance his career prospects. Abram embodied potential, making his loss all the more tragic. Carrie Anastasia Woodberry entered Abram's life approximately 2 years before his death. At first glance, they seemed compatible, both in their 20s, both working toward stability, both with dreams of building something meaningful. Friends noted their initial chemistry, how they'd finish each other's sentences and make plans for weekend getaways. But beneath the surface compatibility lay significant differences. Where Abram was known for his even temperament, Carrie displayed intensity that could shift dramatically based on circumstances. Former friends described her as passionate, a term that hinted at deeper complexities. Carrie's background included previous volatile relationships, though these weren't immediately apparent to Abram. She was articulate and ambitious, with a sharp intellect that drew Abram in. She worked in retail management, priding herself on her independence. What attracted Abram most, according to those close to him, was Carrie's apparent decisiveness and clear vision for her future, qualities he admired and aspired to develop himself. Within 6 months, the relationship between Abram and Carrie had developed concerning patterns. Arguments that began over minor issues would escalate quickly. Friends reported seeing them engaged in heated public disputes that would end as suddenly as they began, with intense reconciliations following. They'd be fighting 1 minute and posting couple photos the next, one friend explained. It was exhausting, just watching it happen over and over. Their arguments often centered on accusations of dishonesty. Carrie would demand to check Abram's phone, a request he initially resisted but eventually accepted to keep the peace. Witnesses described incidents where Carrie would call Abram repeatedly if he didn't answer immediately, sometimes calling his workplace or showing up unexpectedly. Despite these issues, Abram remained committed to making the relationship work. He often told friends that relationships take work, and that he believed Carrie's intensity came from past hurts that he could help heal through patience and understanding. Multiple concerning behaviors emerged as their relationship progressed. Carrie began isolating Abram from friends, often creating conflicts when he made plans without her. She questioned his loyalty constantly, turning casual interactions with female coworkers into accusations of infidelity. One particularly troubling incident occurred at a family gathering when Carrie threw a drink at Abram after seeing him speaking with a female cousin she hadn't met. Instead of addressing this aggression, Abram apologized to family members and left early. These conflicts followed a predictable cycle: escalation, explosion, apology, reconciliation, and temporary calm before beginning again. Abram started changing his behavior to avoid triggering Carrie's jealousy, declining work events, stopping communication with female friends, and constantly updating her on his whereabouts. His personal boundaries eroded gradually as he adapted to Carrie's demands. Friends who expressed concern were met with defenses of, "You don't understand our relationship," or "She's just been through a lot." The power imbalance within their relationship deserves closer examination. Though physically stronger, Abram found himself emotionally controlled through Carrie's manipulation of his compassionate nature. Her accusations made him doubt his own perceptions, a textbook example of gaslighting that left him constantly apologizing for perceived wrongs. What keeps victims in these situations? For Abram, it appears to have been a combination of genuine affection, misplaced responsibility for Carrie's emotional well-being, and the gradual normalization of dysfunction. Text messages recovered after his death revealed Abram had recently considered ending the relationship. "I don't think I can do this anymore," he wrote to a close friend just 3 weeks before the shooting, "but I worry what she might do if I leave." This fear of consequences, whether for himself or for Carrie, created invisible chains. Even as the relationship deteriorated, Abram remained trapped in a psychological cage constructed through months of emotional manipulation, hoping things would eventually improve. July 2nd, 2024, began as an ordinary Tuesday. According to coworkers, Abram had completed his morning shift and mentioned plans to sort some things out with Carrie that evening. Text messages recovered from his phone revealed they'd been arguing for several days about Abram's work schedule keeping them apart. Around 4:30 p.m., surveillance footage captured Abram withdrawing $200 from an ATM near his workplace. Phone records show Carrie called him 7 times between 5 and 5:45 p.m. By 6:15 p.m., the couple was checking into room 214 at the Quality Inn along Paxville Highway outside Manning. The motel clerk later told investigators that while Abram seemed tired but polite during check-in, Carrie appeared agitated, repeatedly checking her phone. Why choose a motel rather than meeting at either of their homes? Friends speculated they wanted neutral territory for what Abram had told a coworker would be a serious conversation about our future. Based on recovered digital evidence and Carrie's subsequent statements, we know the catalyst for violence was a series of text messages Carrie discovered on Abram's phone while he was in the shower. The messages were exchanges between Abram and a female coworker named Jessica. The texts themselves weren't romantic in nature. They primarily discussed workplace matters and an upcoming staff event. However, one message from Jessica read, "Thanks for always listening. You're the only one who gets it." This seemingly innocent message, coupled with a brief exchange about possibly meeting for coffee to discuss a work project, triggered Carrie's suspicions. According to the motel neighbors in room 216, the argument began with Carrie shouting, "Who the hell is Jessica?" What followed was a heated exchange where Abram attempted to explain the professional nature of the relationship, while Carrie accused him of betrayal. Her suspicion had transformed an innocuous workplace interaction into perceived evidence of infidelity, a misinterpretation with fatal consequences. According to witness statements from neighboring rooms, the verbal confrontation rapidly intensified. Multiple guests reported hearing a woman screaming accusations, followed by the sound of breaking glass around 7:40 p.m. Carrie later admitted to investigators that she had thrown Abram's phone against the bathroom mirror, shattering both. When Abram attempted to leave the room, she blocked the doorway. Security camera footage shows Abram briefly exiting the room at 7:53 p.m. before being pulled back inside. By 8:05 p.m., the argument had moved to the exterior walkway of the second floor. Witnesses described seeing Carrie pursuing Abram with her purse clutched tightly, the purse containing the handgun. At approximately 8:12 p.m., 6 gunshots echoed through the motel complex. 3 struck Abram in the torso, 2 in his back, and 1 in his left shoulder as he attempted to flee down the stairwell. He collapsed on the upper landing, where he died within minutes. Hotel security footage captured Carrie standing over Abram's body for almost 40 seconds before returning to their room. Rather than calling for help, she collected her belongings and attempted to clean the blood from her clothes. 15 minutes passed before another guest discovered Abram's body and called 911. By then, no medical intervention could have saved him. Deputies from the Clarendon County Sheriff's Office arrived at 8:41 p.m., securing the scene and blocking all exits. They found Abram's body exactly as the security footage had shown, sprawled across the stairwell, landing with multiple gunshot wounds. When officers located Carrie in room 214, she was sitting on the bed, the handgun visible on the nightstand. According to the arresting officer's report, her first words were, "He was texting that woman again." The murder weapon was a legally purchased .38 caliber revolver, registered in Carrie's name, a weapon she'd purchased just 3 months earlier, telling the seller it was for protection. I need to pause here because what happened to Abram wasn't random. It followed a pattern that experts recognize in domestic violence cases. Right now, someone watching this video may be experiencing similar controlling behaviors or jealousy in their relationship. If you recognize these patterns in your own life or someone you care about, tap the like button as your private acknowledgement. You're not alone. In the comments, share one resource available in your community for domestic violence prevention. Your comment could connect someone with life-saving help. Subscribe to support more awareness videos like this one. Each subscription helps amplify these crucial conversations. Most importantly, save the National Domestic Violence Hotline in your phone, 1-800-799-7233. They offer confidential support 24/7. Share this video with someone who needs this information. Domestic violence thrives in silence. Your share could interrupt a pattern before it ends in tragedy like Abram's. Within minutes of arriving at the Quality Inn, deputies established a perimeter around the entire property. Detective Beverly Patterson, first to enter room 214, documented the chaotic scene: broken glass covering the bathroom floor, bedding torn from the mattress, and a dinner that had never been eaten still sitting on the table. The .38 caliber revolver was collected from the nightstand, with gunshot residue tests immediately performed on Carrie's hands. 6 spent shell casings were recovered, all matching the ammunition in Carrie's purse. Officers interviewed 14 motel guests who had heard the argument or gunshots. One guest from room 212 had recorded audio of the final moments of the argument on his phone after becoming concerned about the escalating noise. Blood spatter analysis confirmed that Abram had been moving away from Carrie when shot. Each detail methodically collected by the forensic team painted a clear picture of what prosecutors would later call a preventable tragedy fueled by jealousy and unchecked anger. Carrie Woodberry was taken into custody without resistance. During transport to the station, officers noted her calm demeanor, with one deputy reporting she asked multiple times about her phone, but never once about Abram's condition. At the station, after being read her Miranda rights, Carrie made several spontaneous statements. "He deserved it," and "You don't know what he put me through," according to police reports. The following morning, Carrie appeared before Judge Raymond Ellis, who formally charged her with voluntary manslaughter rather than first-degree murder. Bail was set at $500,000, which remained unpaid, keeping Carrie in custody. Her court-appointed attorney, Michael Dawson, made no statements to the press, but filed motions requesting psychological evaluation for his client. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Elaine Huang, assembled witness statements, digital evidence, and forensic reports that formed a compelling case for conviction. The distinction between murder and voluntary manslaughter hinges on premeditation. For Carrie's case, several factors influenced the charging decision. First, despite owning the gun for months, evidence suggested Carrie hadn't arrived at the motel planning to use it. Hotel staff confirmed she'd left the gun in her purse during check-in and initial arguments. Second, text messages from Carrie to a friend just hours before the shooting indicated she wanted to work things out with Abram, not harm him. Legal analyst Terrence Washington explained, "Voluntary manslaughter typically involves intense emotional provocation that temporarily impairs rational judgment." The prosecution likely viewed this as a heat of passion crime, where Carrie's emotional state overcame her rational thinking. The spontaneous nature of the argument and the immediate trigger of discovering the text messages created what the law recognizes as adequate provocation, not justifying the killing, but distinguishing it from the calculated planning that defines first-degree murder. News of Abram's death generated significant media attention. Local stations led with headlines highlighting how seemingly ordinary relationship problems had turned deadly. Online comment sections filled with heated debates about gun ownership, relationship boundaries, and domestic violence. The Manning Daily Observer ran a front-page feature examining missed opportunities for intervention. Their investigation revealed that police had been called to Carrie's apartment twice in the months before the shooting for noise complaints during arguments. Social media became a battlefield of opinions, with hashtags Justice for Abram and Carrie's Truth trending locally. Some commenters defended Carrie, suggesting Abram must have provoked her, while others condemned what they saw as victim blaming. Domestic violence organizations used the case as an opportunity to educate the public. This tragedy demonstrates how quickly conflict can become deadly when firearms are involved, noted the director of a South Carolina Family Safety Coalition during a televised interview. Abram's absence left a tangible void in his community. Coworkers created a memorial at his workplace, placing photos and messages on his locker. His former basketball teammates organized a charity game, raising $5,800 for domestic violence prevention programs. On what would have been his 29th birthday, Abram's family held a celebration of life service that drew over 300 attendees. His mother established a scholarship fund in his name for young men pursuing trade careers, honoring Abram's belief in the dignity of skilled work. He would want something good to come from this. his sister explained during the memorial service. Abram always found ways to help others, even in difficult situations. Local barbers offered free haircuts to men who pledged to speak out against domestic violence, inspired by conversations Abram had initiated at his regular barbershop about healthy relationships and respecting women, a painful irony given how his life ended. Looking back at Abram's story, several behavioral patterns went unchallenged. The constant phone checking, the accusations without evidence, the isolation from friends, the monitoring of his whereabouts. Each action, taken alone, might seem like relationship insecurity, but together they formed a clear pattern of control. Friends noticed how Abram gradually stopped attending social gatherings without Carrie. Family members observed his growing hesitation to speak freely around her. Coworkers saw his anxiety when unable to immediately answer her calls. These behaviors weren't just jealousy or passion, they were textbook control tactics. The progression from emotional manipulation to physical violence followed a path experts recognize, but that those involved often can't see from within. The presence of a firearm transformed what might have been a painful breakup into a homicide. This isn't rare. When guns are accessible during domestic conflicts, the likelihood of a fatal outcome increases by 500%. Carrie purchased her weapon just 3 months before the shooting. The gun, supposedly bought for protection, instead became the instrument of violence against someone she claimed to love. What makes firearms particularly dangerous in emotional conflicts is the permanence they introduce. Harsh words can be forgiven. Physical altercations might heal, but a pulled trigger can't be undone. The seconds between anger and action shrink dramatically when a gun is available. For Abram, those critical seconds might have been the difference between life and death. Had the argument happened without a firearm present, he might have walked away from the relationship rather than losing his life. This reality raises questions about access to firearms for individuals with histories of emotional volatility or relationship conflicts. Multiple opportunities to intervene in Abram and Carrie's deteriorating relationship were missed. The police visits to Carrie's apartment for noise complaints during arguments were documented as domestic disturbance, but no follow-up occurred. These calls represented chances for professionals to connect Carrie with anger management resources or Abram with support services. The healthcare system missed opportunities too. Medical records show Abram visited an urgent care facility for a sprained wrist 3 months before his death, offering an explanation that didn't match the injury pattern. The physician noted suspicions, but took no further action. Friends who witnessed concerning behaviors often didn't know how to effectively intervene. Many expressed that they didn't want to overstep or get involved in relationship problems. These gaps in response, from law enforcement, healthcare providers, and social networks, created a situation where escalating behaviors continued unchecked until they reached their tragic conclusion. Abram's story is devastatingly common. Each year, approximately 1,200 Americans are killed by intimate partners. For every victim who dies, countless others suffer non-fatal violence and psychological abuse. When examining crimes categorized as passion-based, 67% involve accusations of infidelity, real or perceived. The majority of these crimes occur within 48 hours of the accusation, highlighting how quickly situations can escalate. Most victims had previously experienced non-physical forms of control, including digital surveillance, isolation tactics, and emotional manipulation. These behaviors often begin subtly and intensify over time. The gender dynamics cannot be ignored. Women are more frequently victims, but men like Abram face unique barriers to seeking help. Many male victims report feeling embarrassed, disbelieved, or concerned about appearing weak if they admit to experiencing abuse. These statistics represent real people, neighbors, coworkers, family members, and friends whose lives are forever altered by relationship violence. If aspects of Abram's relationship feel familiar, please know help exists. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233, provides confidential support 24/7. Their website offers a chat feature that leaves no digital footprint if you're concerned about privacy. Local shelters often provide services regardless of gender, including safety planning and legal guidance. Many offer assistance, even if you're not ready to leave the relationship. For those concerned about a loved one, the One Love Foundation provides resources on how to recognize unhealthy relationships and safely intervene. These resources emphasize an important truth. Seeking help isn't admitting failure. It's demonstrating courage and self-respect. Early intervention might have saved Abram's life. When we notice concerning dynamics in relationships, excessive jealousy, controlling behaviors, isolation, or frequent conflicts, speaking up matters. Effective intervention isn't accusatory, but comes from genuine concern. I've noticed things seem tense between you two lately. Are you okay? Or, I'm here whenever you want to talk. For those experiencing control and manipulation, hearing that others notice can break through isolation. For those exhibiting concerning behaviors, awareness may open paths to change. The most dangerous time in abusive relationships is during separation. Professional guidance during this period is crucial, something Abram never had the chance to access. As we conclude Abram's story, I'm asking you to take 3 specific actions. First, comment below sharing one sign of relationship danger you've learned from this video. Your insight might help someone recognize their own situation. Second, like and share this video, not for algorithms, but because someone in your network may desperately need this information. Finally, subscribe to support more conversations that might save lives like Abram's. Abram Walker's death at 28 represents more than a crime statistic. It symbolizes countless moments unlived, contributions unmade, and potential unrealized. His story reminds us that domestic violence affects people of all genders, backgrounds, and communities. Perhaps the most meaningful way to honor Abram's memory is by creating a world where jealousy doesn't lead to violence, where help is readily available, and where 6 gunshots over a text message becomes something that simply doesn't happen.